We're on all the things. All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome to the September 25th, 2025 City of San Diego Historic Resources Board meeting. With that, Suzanne, do you want to give our intro here?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Seeger, a senior planner in the Heritage Preservation section of the City Planning Department. Today's Historical Resources Board meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of California Government Code Section 54953E, as amended by Assembly Bill 2249, which allows the city to use teleconferencing and to provide the public an opportunity to address the board via a call-in option or an internet-based service option. Effective February 10th, 2023, the Historical Resources Board will be meeting in person, and the meetings will be open for in-person testimony. In lieu of in-person attendance, members of the public may submit their comments online via the city's webpage, via telephone, Zoom, or US mail, and the method documented on the posted agenda. Today, we are using Zoom as our hybrid meeting platform. In addition, this meeting is being live streamed via the City of San Diego's public hearings YouTube channel. Please note the buttons on your Zoom meeting bar that pop up when you move the mouse. Share screen will enable an applicant to give a presentation, and the microphone is to mute and unmute. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. When wanting to participate in a discussion, please virtually raise your hand, and chair buyers will call on you in the order entered. Please refrain from using the meeting chat in order to comply with the Brown Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seeger. All right, now we'll go ahead and do roll call. To confirm board member attendance, when I call your name, please say present. So Vice Chairperson Michael Taylor.
Present.
Second Vice Chairperson, Board Member Cortez.
Present.
Board Member Kumper.
Present.
Board Member Farley.
Always got the bum mic. Present.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Board Member Friedberg.
Present.
Board Member McCullough.
Present.
Board Member Miller.
Present.
Board Member Provence.
Present.
Board Member Sophia.
Present.
And Board Member Woods.
Here.
Thank you all for the 100% attendance. I love it. All right, we do have an expected early departure, so I understand, Board Member Friedberg, that you're going to be leaving at 3 today? Okay, great. With that, we'll continue on to non-agenda public comment. Non-agenda public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on issues within the jurisdiction of the Historical Resources Board not previously heard or on today's agenda. Members of the public attending in person must submit a speaker slip to the hearing secretary, and those attending remotely should indicate their desire to speak by raising their virtual hand. Speakers will be provided 3 minutes each to address the board. All right, Mr. Koontz, come on up.
Hello. Great. Thank you, Chairman Byers, members of the board and city staff. Bruce Koontz, Deputy Director of Save Our Heritage Organization. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. There were some questions that came up last time about the board's role in site development permits and what you can and can't talk about. I wanted to go over that a little bit. The board, it's an advisory vote. It's not like a regulatory vote like your normal vote about whether it's a historic resource or not. And so you have wide latitude on what you can comment on. You are supposed to comment on whether it meets the Secretary of Interior standards, what you see, and appropriateness. But you have a wide range, all the way from rejecting the entire project, like your board did with the Plaza de Panama project, or voting to demo the resource in favor of the project like you did with the San Diego International Sports Arena, and everywhere in between. Since we don't have design assistance much anymore, you get to comment on all aspects of the project and what happens to the resource. You can accept what's being presented. You can make modifications. You can change the mitigation or add to the mitigation that's appropriate. Like the resource we looked at last time, you could have said that no, it's not appropriate. We want the resource moved off site. You're just making a recommendation to the Planning Commission. It's a simple majority vote, unlike the other majority. I mean, unlike the other activity, which requires a supermajority. So you can comment on any aspect, changes, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate. You're not the decision maker in this case. You are in the other instance. And so anything is fair game, whereas you can't talk about the project when you're trying to decide the environmental question, whether it's historic or not, or whether, like in other environmental things, whether it's a vernal pool or not. This is the time you get to opine about the disposition, whether it's preserved all or in part or demolished. This is the time you can talk about the trade-offs. Is the new project more important than the resource, or is the resource more important than the project? It's fully open. Once again, it's a recommendation to the Planning Commission and sometimes on to the council, depending on to the agree. So it's wide open. If you don't like the design, suggest to change the design. If you like the design, you can say you like the design. It is not constrained, which might have been some of the impression left last time, but it's wide open. And so this is there's a lot of complaints about not being able to talk about the project. This is the time to talk about the project and the resource and what happens to it and what you recommend basically happens to the historic resource, and whether it meets the standards or not. That should be part of the decision. Even if you decide to override it and do something else, you should make comments on whether it meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Thank you.
We've gone just a little bit over, but thank you for your support always, Mr. Koontz. Ms. Stiegler.
Hi, Ione Stiegler from IS Architecture, Chair Byers and the board. Thank you for this opportunity. I have, well, just one observation. It is so nice to see 11 seats filled. And my apologies, I haven't been at the last couple of meetings. So if you've been doing this, thumbs up. If this is the first time in a while, oh my God, it's been years. So really, really grateful. Thank you, everybody, for your time and showing up to do this. It's really, really important. My comments are primarily about preservation in progress. I consider myself to be someone who's fairly informed in what has been laid out as the work program for this year and next year. And I have to say, I have been left with nothing but confused out of attending the subcommittee meetings as to what has been determined, what hasn't been determined, where decisions lie, whether any of the input from the public is being applied. I am completely in the dark. The last meeting that I attended, where I laid out 8 or 10 different very specific points based on language that was submitted to the public ahead of the meeting, I was basically chastised for taking too long when I took under 10 minutes to go through 10 points. Very efficiently, all pre-written down, no meandering. I really didn't like getting scolded for taking too much time and having little or no opportunity for input. And it was the first time I had spoken at any of those subcommittee meetings. Other than that, I had sat back. So I really am concerned that the public is getting a whitewash on the process, that the innocuous, we put everything up on the website in November. We restated everything in January. We went before the planning board in February, March, whatever that was. And therefore we've been open and on, and exposing everything. And then when we have an opportunity to put in any input, we're not told whether the input is being applied, where it's going, what's happening, and long-term, how are we finishing out this year's work schedule for preservation and progress? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, it looks like we don't have anyone online. I guess I would just say going once, going twice for anyone online who wants to speak to non-agenda items. No. Okay, with that, we will go on to our administrative items. Ms. Seeger, could you go over the board administrative matters and general information, please?
Yes, thank you. Prior to today's meeting, the board members have been emailed the HRB criteria guidelines, the motion and findings form for historical designation, and correspondence from Scott Mumjian on item 4. There was also no comments submitted via the public web form prior to 10 a.m. this morning, so that was not distributed because there was nothing there.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll take any general board member comments. So these would be any announcements or comments on non-agenda issues. Do any board members wish to provide comments on items not on today's agenda? Mr. Cortez.
Can staff speak to the site development permit comments made by Mr. Coons related to looking at the project holistically outside of just the historic context when site development permits do come to the board? Do you support the comments he made, or can you clarify?
So in terms of the board's review of site development permits and their purview, it does relate to the deviation findings that need to be made, whether it's relocation of a designated historic resource or substantial alteration or demolition. So whether or not those findings can be made, and as the board knows, those findings require that there are no feasible measures to reduce the impacts. Alternatives have been looked at. There's an economic, that there's no other reasonable economic return from the project. So that requires you to look both at the project itself, the alternatives that were analyzed in the economic analysis and in the usually the environmental impact report, and the board is looking at that as well. So all of that information, the project, the alternatives, the findings, and whether or not there is enough information in the record to support those findings, and the environmental document and the mitigation that are proposed are all items that are within the board's purview to review and comment on. If the board feels that there are additional mitigation measures that could be warranted or additional alternatives that could reduce the impact to the resource, the board could include in their recommendation that that be either included if it's mitigation or looked at if it's an alternative. But that would be a recommendation that is then conveyed to the next step, as opposed to kind of sending the project back in the process. So that would just be a position that's conveyed typically to the Planning Commission, because site development permits are process 4, which is heard by the Planning Commission and appealable to the City Council.
Great, thank you. And can you also speak to Ms. Stiegler's request to the work plan for preservation and progress at least part A that's moving along? And
I do have a report out coming out, and my staff report out.
we'll wait for that.
Probably 30 seconds from now.
Thank you, Board Member Cortez and staff. Anyone else have any general comments from the board? Board Member McCullough.
I have a question for staff, something that's been bugging me personally and maybe just a point of clarity that I need. There has been in the past, I think, a couple of occasions where we've seen items come before the board that were assisted items, and I think specifically of Ms. Stiegler, who has come before us twice and worked with staff on renovations of properties, and then staff denying designation. And I'm really confused by this because we had one which I think may dropped off the agenda here on that was, well, let me first say that there's some beautiful houses on the agenda that should very definitely be considered historic without a doubt. So I want to say I support that. There was one that was not specifically recommended for designation, and I'm just completely utterly befuddled by what is it that because there's other properties that I believe should be considered historic at this time on the agenda. However, the modifications seem similar in nature. And so what is it that creates a situation where one might be considered or be supported by staff and one might not? And I really think this is an important thing that we need to get to, because I've felt Ms. Stiegler's pain and frustration in the past on two separate projects and others. And I just don't know that there's clear explanation for this. And I think if we all knew as a group and as a, just generally speaking, then I think our professionals here would have would be more would be better prepared to make the arguments and to work with their clients. So I'd love some explanation if I could.
Thank you, Board Member McCullough, for your comment and your question. I think that the answer kind of varies depending, upon the situation. So broadly, as staff, we are always striving for consistency across projects whenever possible. We are constantly talking to each other and amongst ourselves about past decisions and how current decisions are aligning with past decisions, and why something on the surface may seem to be a similar situation but may have a differing recommendation. We also definitely do not like or enjoy situations where we have worked with an applicant during a project process, and then when it comes to the designation, do not recommend designation of the property. And I would say that that is an exceedingly rare circumstance. There could be any number of reasons for that. Sometimes our initial determination of potential significance is based on limited information and not a full report. And so we're kind of proceeding from that and designing a project consistent with the standards based on that. And then once we have more information in front of us, that may change our position on the property's eligibility. How the project was implemented may change our position on a property. So there's a lot of different factors. We will, when there are situations where we are recommending against designation when we have reviewed the property previously, we'll try to make sure it's exceedingly clear in the staff report why that has happened. As I said, it's not a common occurrence, and it's not one that we want to see happen as staff, but acknowledge that it has. And so, yeah, it's hard to give you a blanket answer across the board, because there's just so many different variations of situations, circumstances, the resource, how strong an example it is, or what a strong candidate is for designation, versus the project, versus how the project is implemented, versus the level of information we have when we make an initial determination versus a designation action. And so there's a lot of factors there.
Thank you. It sounds like Board Member McCullough, you have something else to share.
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, that I do honestly believe that our staff for HRB is the best group of staff members at the city. So, and I'm not just saying that. So I want to just clarify that. The thing that I want to say is, as a consultant to the city, not necessarily dealing with the Historic Resource Board, on some occasions, but not, that's not necessarily where we fall in. It is incredibly frustrating when you're told one thing and then and then unable to execute, especially, you know, with your clients who are paying you money and have full expectation, and you're trying to give them some clarity. And sometimes I have to just tell them, like, I just don't know. And that's really tough. So what I want to ask is, if there's a way that, and maybe this is not possible, but is there a way that staff could just frankly out front let an applicant know, if they're in the process of renovating a structure, that hey, we want to help you on this, but it's important that you know up front that we're probably not gonna to accept this. I just feel like, again, from my own standpoint, it would be so incredibly important to have some clarity and just some solid foundation to work on when I'm recommending things to my clients. And I can imagine that for the others out here in the audience, they might feel the same way. That's all. Thank you.
Sure. And just to follow up, when we work with applicants, we do try to be very upfront with how strong of a candidate we think a property is for designation. If we think it's kind of maybe a borderline property in terms of its eligibility, we try to be upfront about that. We also work to let them know that, you know, staff can say it's potentially eligible. We can say this project is consistent with the standards, but that does not beholden the board to a future action. The board could disagree and the property could not be designated. Provide options of going to the board first to have the designation question settled first and foremost before designing your project. But in the end, we have to kind of go with the process that the applicant wants to follow. And in our experience, that is oftentimes a project first, whether that's because perhaps there's a restoration component that needs to happen before it's eligible, or that's just simply the applicant's timeline of wanting a rehabilitation restoration project completed first before bringing it forward for designation.
Okay, thank you for that exchange. Any other board members have any general comments before we proceed with the agenda? No other comments. All right. Okay, then we'll close general comment. At this point, we'll talk about any declarations of conflict of interest, ex parte communications, or failure to visit sites. For conflicts of interest, do any board members need to disclose any conflicts of interest on any items on today's agenda? Yes, board member Sophia.
For item number 3, I have familiarity with the applicant's family. However, there will be no impact on my decision to be able to vote on their matter.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other conflicts of interest? Okay, what about any ex parte communications? Do any board members need to disclose any ex parte communications on any items on today's agenda? The only one I would like to disclose is when I was visiting item number 6, the 3030 Alcott Street. I did have a quick exchange with the occupant of that home, but there was nothing exchanged about the resource or about the application, and so it will not influence my decision today. All right, and failure to visit designation sites, invocation of waiver. Did any board member fail to visit the site of any designation items on today's agenda?
I wasn't able to visit it was number 3 on Prospect Place. So do I like to invoke a waiver?
You don't need to for that one because it's not a designation action. It's review as a heritage structure, which is
Okay.
distinct from a
Thank you.
designation.
Thank you. Board Member McCullough?
Yeah, there was a scheduled site visit for, I think it was Alcott, is that right?
Yeah, item 6.
And I was not available for that weekend. I will say that I did walk around the back and walked up, and I could see the house fine. So I was there, reviewed it. I felt confident I can make a judgment on it, but just want to just make that disclaimer.
And staff does not opine that you would need to invoke the waiver for that. The opening of that side yard was just so you guys can get a better kind of view and hopefully help you make a decision.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to any requests for continuances or withdrawals. We did receive one request for item number 4 to request a continuance, and that is the project. That's all right. On Ibis Street. And so the date requested for continuance was 30 days to the October 23rd, 2025. Do we have any requests to continue or withdraw any other items on today's agenda? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on the request for continuance? Before we take a vote, any members of the public want to speak on that? Okay, should we call him? Yeah, okay. All right, Mr. Moomjin, we see your hand raised. If you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Byers. Scott Moomjin, representing David and Sarah Potter, the owners of the 4128 Ibis Street
1
property.
minute, Scott, we can't hear you. You're in room. I know you're talking. Wait, are you talking?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Yes, I can see his microphone going up, down.
Yeah, you
1
can't hear
second
me?
while we fix that.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Terrific. Thank you, Chair Byers, staff, members of the board. My name is Scott Moomjin, representing David and Sarah Potter, the owners of the 4128 Ibis Street property. I would very much request, like the board, to grant our request for continuance. We're doing some initial evaluation and investigation after receiving the staff report not too long ago. And we also do, not that this is directly related to the request for continuance, but it is kind of forms the basis for another issue that we've been dealing with. And that is, without going into incredible detail, it's the same issue that was illustrated and enunciated by Board Member McCullough on the project side of things. So we most definitely would request 30 days so we can address some of these issues and come back next month in October with a very, very vibrant and detailed presentation for your consideration of designation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments online? Anybody raising their hand to speak? Okay. All right. Can I have a motion for this from the board?
Yes, I motion that we grant a 30-day continuance for item number 4, 4128 Ibis Street till October 2025 board meeting.
I second.
Thank you, Board Member Taylor. And the second was that Board Member Sophia? Okay, thank you for that. All right, now we will take a vote, and to remind everyone, we're doing a vote by simultaneously raising our hands. So all those who approve, please raise your hands.
That's board members Farley, Province, Sophia, Woods, Cortez, Byers, Taylor, Cooper, Friedberg, Miller, and McCullough. That's unanimous.
All right, thanks, everybody. All right, now we'll move on to items on the consent agenda. Staff has proposed items for inclusion in the consent portion of the agenda. Actions to designate a resource as historic require an affirmative vote of 6 board members, and all other actions require an affirmative vote of a majority of board members present. Any board member may add or remove an item from the consent portion of the agenda. Any removed items will be heard in accordance with their regular placement on the agenda unless otherwise indicated by the chair. The following items are proposed by staff for the consent portion of the agenda. Item number 1, College Area Community Plan Historic Preservation Component. Item number 2, Claremont Area Community Plan Historic Preservation Component. Item number 3, 484 Prospect Street. Item number 5, Peterson Lumber and Finance Company, Virgil Cash Spec House number 1, located at 2477 Mary Louise Way. Item number 6, Laura and Harold Conklin House, located at 3030 Alcott Street. Item number 7, Woodley Phillips House, located at 2772 Pringle Street. Item number 8, George Carter Spec House number 1, located at 3560 32nd Street. Item number 9, John and Kate Bardsley, A.M. Southard House, located at 1239 Myrtle Avenue. Do any board members wish to add or remove items from the consent agenda? Board member Woods, would you like to comment on something? Your mic is off, by the way. Okay.
I feel like I don't have enough information on the Claremont Community Plan to be moving it forward at this time. I'm interested if any other board members are in that position.
Do any other board members want to respond to board member Woods on this? Does everybody feel?
So I wasn't here for the initial meeting
Oh,
on
okay.
this, so I think my inclination at this time is to just recuse myself from that, as I missed the initial presentation.
Okay.
Excuse my terminology. I'm going to say abstain rather than recuse. Correct.
Thank you. I still have a question for our city attorney. So we just have 2 consent votes then? One for the majority of the agenda and one for that one? All right, board member Woods, here's what we're thinking. We'd want to then vote on the consent items twice. Do you feel comfortable voting on the rest of the items? Okay.
And I'm nodding my head yes.
Okay, we've talked through that. Does anyone else have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to remove or add? Anybody from the board?
I don't know that I really want to remove something from the consent agenda, but I do have a comment regarding an item on the consent agenda. Is this an appropriate time to share it?
Yes.
Okay, so for the college area community plan historic preservation component, maybe this is a question, but there is a certain type of architecture style defined as institutional style. Sorry, I can bring it up exactly, but I know that there is a nice size Orthodox Jewish population in the college area, and there's the Beth Jacob Synagogue that began construction in 1972, was completed in 1977. It was just not mentioned with the other list of institutions, and I just wanted to make sure if that was left out because it was sort of the tail end of the period. The period ends in 1974. I just want to make sure it's not overlooked.
I can answer that for you. So it was not included there was no survey done for the college area, so there was no formal analysis of these type of buildings. However, our consultant who did our historic context statement used that 1974 cutoff date. However, I can make a note of that building and include it in our study documents for future reference.
All right, I also have a comment on an item, and it doesn't change necessarily how I feel about the item, but I would like to talk about it and get some clarification from staff. So this is item number 8, the 3560 32nd Street. Again, that project passes for me the smell test like we talk about sometimes. But what I'm curious about is the tile roofing. That wasn't really addressed in the report, and it doesn't look to be from the period. So we see this once in a while. I'm just curious about staff's general comment about Spanish tile roofing like that.
Yeah, so upon review of that roof, if it was replaced, it was an in-kind tile for tile replacement done prior to 2004. We don't have any information about that roof replacement. However, in general, staff looks for materiality first, and then we want to make sure that it's not like the prefab panels of Spanish tile. We kind of had a discussion internally about that roof. It is still that S Spanish curve. We just think that it was laid a little differently than normal, which is kind of giving that appearance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, what we've decided to do with the help of Ms. Sebastian, our Deputy City Attorney, because Board Member Woods, you are going to abstain from one of the items, we're going to break it into 2 votes. And so I would be remind me. Okay, whatever the items are. Okay. And ask for the motion.
And then take it
Okay. Sorry, my flow's just a little messed up on this one.
I'd be happy to make the initial.
We're not
motion.
doing that yet, which is
Yeah.
so
Okay.
which is like I said, my flow's just a little messed up on this one, so that's all right. So essentially, what we're going to do is we are going to have 2 separate votes on the consent portions of the agenda. So we are going to separate them out into items. The first vote would be for 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then there would be a second separate discussion and vote about item number 2, the Claremont Area Community Plan Historic Preservation Component. So our intent then will be to have public comment and then board discussion and then the formal vote on those 2 groups separately. So with that said then, do we have any public comment on the consent items that are 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, excluding that item 2 Claremont Area Community Plan portion? Right, we don't see anyone in person or online. Do we have any further comments from the board on that portion of the consent agenda? No, okay, so then at this, oh,
You just read item 1, but that is the Claremont Community Plan.
No.
that's the
Oh,
college area.
Right,
That's all right.
looking at, okay.
That's okay, Board Member Farley.
I know.
So, Board Member Woods, do you still want to make that motion? You got this. You got it.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to approve items 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Board Member Woods. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Taylor. Yeah, do we have any further discussion from the board before we take that vote? Okay, with that said, all in approval of this first portion of the consent agenda as laid out by Board Member Woods. Raise your hands, please.
That's board members McCullough, Miller, Friedberg, Cooper, Taylor, Byers, Cortez, Woods, Sophia, Province, Farley. That motion passes unanimously.
All right, so congratulations to everyone who had a project on this portion of the consent agenda. Would anyone, either in person or online, like to speak to the board?
Hi, Ginger Weatherford representing Krista Stelmacher. And I would like to thank the board and the staff and for all of your time and consideration, for Kelsey reviewing the report and for Alvin helping us in the beginning with the stucco texture. Krista worked very hard to restore this property and she really loves the property. So she's very happy. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thanks. Your mic is not on yet. Need to push. Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much. On behalf of our client, Marcus and Sean Hodgwin, I'd like to thank the board very much for its viewing the property on Alcock Street and for designating. This is one of those properties where we needed to do work on the property ahead of being able to bring it forward for designation. It's one of those rare properties where the front's on the side and where the alteration had occurred, altered a character defining feature of a Monterey style, notably the balcony. And luckily we had the historic documentation to be able to bring it back. And we were able to view the scars in situ once we opened up the walls to be able to fully document what was brought back. And I want to thank everyone for their acknowledgement that that work brought it to a point of being able to be designated. I would also observe that the times when we've had a conflict in this process, where we've, worked towards restoring something for designation with the anticipation of bringing forward for designation, and have ended up with a negative recommendation from staff, have, at least in our instance, in both occasions been because a different staff member wrote the designation report recommendation, as opposed to the staff member who we worked with to get to the restoration. And I'd say that that may be something that could be adjusted in the future, where the project is followed through by the same staff member. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stiegler.
Am I on? Yeah.
You are on, yes.
My name is Story Vogel. Thank you very much for letting me appear. I'm appearing on behalf of Juliana Delgado Garcia, who owns 3772 Pringle. And she's very pleased. She's homesick with her little baby. They have bad voices, so she may weigh in, she may not. I want to thank Megan for helping me, because I turned it in when it was just the transition to uploading documents, and I did a terrible job. And it's not because I'm completely inept at computers, but for whatever reason, it's been a tough 2 years. But again, it's a spectacular home, absolutely spectacular. And the area around it grew up, but if you've all been there for site visits, excuse me, and you can just imagine that picture window looking straight to the bay before everything grew up around it. So Mr. Phillips did a fabulous job, although I don't think he even knew what he was doing, for the future at least. He's buried here in town. It's a real San Diego home project from a time when, personally, my favorite time of architecture, the Spanish Revival, Spanish Eclectic. But in any event, thank you very much, and appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that home has some beautiful details. It's quite lovely. All right, congrats again to everyone. Thank you all, those of you for coming and for your words. All right, we are now going to move on to the second portion of the consent agenda. So this will be just to address item number 2, the Claremont Area Community Plan Historic Preservation component. Again, it's still staying on consent. We've just moved it so that we could have a separate vote, right? So still consent. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak about item number 2, the Claremont Area Community Plan Historic Preservation component as part of the consent agenda? All right, seeing no public commenters in person or online, then we can go to any general board member discussion about that Claremont Area Community Plan Historic Preservation component. Right. I don't see any. So then I'd be asking for a motion at this time for item number 2. Can I please have a motion?
Yes, I motion that item number 2 remains on the consent agenda for a board vote.
All right, and can I have a second? Who is that? Farley. Right, thank you, board member Farley. All right, any further discussion before we take a vote? Oops, board members? All right. With that said, by raising your hand, all those that approve, raise your hands.
That's board members McCullough, Miller, Friedberg, Cooper, Taylor, Byers, Sophia Cortez, Prevents, and Farley. Oh, yeah. Well, yes, one's abstaining. That motion passes.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. So then, yeah, that was a pretty packed consent agenda there. Okay. So moving right along here. All right. So now we'll go to an approval of the minutes for the meeting of August 22nd, 2025. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of last month's agenda? Sorry, last month's minutes. All right, no one in person and no one online. All right, do we have any comments from the board on last month's minutes? All right, with that, I would love a motion.
Yes, I would motion to approve the minutes from August 22, 2025.
Second.
All right, thank you. I know I'm calling for a lot of discussion today. Any discussion, further discussion before we take a vote? All right, with that, all those in favor of approving the minutes from last month, please raise your hand.
That's board members Farley, Province, Sophia, Woods, Cortez, Byers, Taylor, Cooper, Friedberg, Miller, and McCullough. That's unanimous.
All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, so at this point, we'll go with staff reports. So from the City Planning Department, Ms. Stenko.
Fourth time's a charm. Okay. I wanted to take this opportunity to provide the board and the public with a quick update on preservation and progress. The policy subcommittee has reviewed almost all components of package A with the exception of updates to the Mills Act program. As the city continues to work with the county to review data on the city's Mills Act program, it's been decided to move those amendments to package B and proceed with the rest of package A. Staff will be announcing a public workshop hosted on Zoom very shortly, and we'll be bringing elements of Package A back to the policy subcommittee one more time in October before bringing all of Package A, excluding the Mills Act elements, which are now in Package B, to the full board in October. Package A will then proceed to Planning Commission, Land Use and Housing Committee, and City Council. We will be updating our website shortly with all of this information and look forward to continued discussion with the subcommittee. What we will be bringing back is the updates to the language around appeals, which the policy subcommittee asked to see again, as well as the appendix to the historic preservation element of the general plan, which includes kind of a narrative history of San Diego. So that will be coming to you next month. This concludes my report out.
Also need to open my mic up. I do have a quick question, and I see that she's left, but Ms. Stiegler had the comment about for policy subcommittee that she had spoken for several minutes, and it felt like she was either she felt like her time was cut short, or she used the term chastised. And I remember that meeting. It was not so long ago, and we had a lot of people speaking. And normally on policy subcommittee, when I've chaired it, I don't necessarily keep comments to 3 minutes just because frankly, we don't have that much commentary. But that day, I think we only had an hour and we had lots of folks lined up. I wasn't limiting the time. What I'm curious about is with the public hearing that you're announcing, is it similar to, or the public comments meeting, is it similar to how we run these meetings where there's a limit on time for 3 minutes each, or do you gauge it per time, or are people allowed pretty much to voice their opinions as long as they desire?
A public workshop is a little less structured. In terms of time allotted, it's going to depend on how many people are there. Like if we had a huge turnout, a lot of people that want to talk, then at that point we might need to put more constraints on time. But if there aren't a ton of speakers, then there's a lot more opportunity for longer comments. It's just kind of played by ear as we get attendees in and get an understanding of how many people want to speak. We do try to allot enough time to those public workshops to allow as much comment and question and answer as possible. For the subcommittee meeting, we're happy to work with you, Chair Byers, on the amount of time you think would be appropriate for the policy subcommittee. If you'd like to go a little over the standard hour, I don't anticipate that the appendix to the element will have much discussion around it. I think it'll be primarily focused on kind of the one remaining issue that the subcommittee wanted to see, being the appeal finding. Of course, the public is welcome to comment on any elements of package A that the subcommittee has seen, but happy to work with you on the appropriate time you would like to identify for that subcommittee meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, Board Member Cortez.
Will the package be coming back to the board board for recommendation or solely to the subcommittee for recommendation before going to planning commission?
It'll go to the subcommittee and the board in October. So the subcommittee will see it at the beginning of October and the board will see it at the end of October.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Now for subcommittee report outs for policy and archaeological and tribal cultural resources. Ms. Anthony?
I'll do them both all today. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the policy subcommittee will be held on October 13th in the large conference room on the 5th floor of the City Administration Building. For more information on the Archaeological and Tribal Cultural Resources Subcommittee, please visit the city's website. And then the next meeting of the Design Assistance Subcommittee is scheduled to be held on Wednesday, October 1st at 4 p.m. in the large conference room on the 5th floor of the City Administration Building. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah. Well, it's amazing how a meeting goes when everything's on the consent agenda. All right, I'm just trying to flip to my reminder here. So we'll see you all next month for our meeting on Thursday, October 23rd. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and congrats to all of those applicants that had their items approved and certified.